If you pulled the permit filings for Barndominiums across Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Missouri right now, you'd notice something strange. Ask 10 different builders in 10 different states what size they're framing most often in 2026, and 9 of them will say the same two numbers, 40 by 60. Not 36 by 48. Not 50 by 70. 40 by 60, over and over, like builders landed on it independently without ever comparing notes. It's not a coincidence, and it's not a trend that started with a single viral floor plan. It's the result of dozens of builders in different regions running into the same structural and financial ceiling from different directions and arriving at the exact same number. That's rare. Usually construction trends drift, a popular exterior color, a roofline that photographs well. This one is different because it's driven by math, not taste. I'm Mason, and today I'm breaking down exactly why that specific footprint has become the default, the reasoning that makes it work, and whether it actually makes sense for you, or if you're about to copy a number without understanding why it exists. If you want more breakdowns like this instead of just pretty home tours, subscribe and turn on the bell. Stick around, because there's one situation near the end where 40 by 60 is the wrong answer, and building it anyway is the single most common regret I keep hearing about from people 2 years into their build. It's not a dramatic mistake. It's a slow building one, the kind that doesn't show up until long after the final inspection. By the end of this, you'll know exactly why this footprint dominates 2026 Barndominium construction, the reasoning behind it, where it starts to break down, and, if the math fits your situation, precisely what building it puts back in your pocket. There's a cost most people never budget for, and it has nothing to do with finishes, appliances, or upgrades. It's the shape of the footprint itself. The two most expensive fixed costs in any Barndominium build are the foundation and the roof structure. Both scale with complexity, not just size. A footprint with angles, jogs, bump outs, or an irregular shape can add 15 to 25% to your foundation and framing costs alone, even when the total square footage is identical to a plain rectangle. People chase a unique shape for curb appeal and don't realize they just paid an extra $20,000 to $40,000 for corners. Here's why that happens. Every inside corner and every outside corner on a foundation needs additional rebar reinforcement, additional formwork, and additional labor hours to get right. A perfect rectangle has 4 corners. An L shape has 6. A footprint with a bump out for a mudroom or a garage jog can have 8 or 10. Each one isn't a minor detail. It's a point where 2 different wall planes have to meet, tie into the slab correctly, and carry roof load without cracking or settling unevenly. The roof tells the same story in a different vocabulary. A simple rectangle gets a plain gable or hip roof, one uninterrupted truss run, repeated efficiently down the length of the building. An irregular footprint forces the roof into valleys, where 2 roof planes meet at an angle. Valleys are notoriously difficult to frame correctly. They're the single most common source of roof leaks in residential construction, and they take far more skilled labor to install than a straight ridge line. So when someone sketches an interesting floor plan on a napkin, they're often unknowingly signing up for a foundation and roof premium before a single finish decision has even been made. There's a second cost that surfaces months later, not at closing: upkeep. A gable roof with no valleys has one continuous ridge, minimal flashing, and very few places for water to pool or debris to collect. An angled footprint with 2 or 3 valleys means 2 or 3 additional flashing details to inspect every few years, and 2 or 3 additional spots where a small installation error can turn into a slow leak that isn't discovered until there's already water damage in a ceiling or wall cavity. So the premium for an irregular shape isn't paid once at closing. It's paid again invisibly every time a roofer gets called out for a maintenance check or repair a simpler roof line would never have needed. This is exactly why builders who've been doing this for 15 or 20 years steer new clients toward plain rectangles before a single design conversation happens. It's not that they lack imagination. It's that they've watched enough irregular footprint projects come in over budget, and enough of those same roofs need callbacks a few years later, that the numbers have become second nature to them. The plain rectangle isn't the boring option. It's the one that's already survived a couple of decades of real-world testing. So why 40 by 60 specifically and not some other clean rectangle? Two reasons, and they compound. First, 2,400 square feet. That number sits almost exactly at the point where a home comfortably fits 3 to 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a genuinely open great room, without spilling into a size that raises your per square foot cost through longer utility runs, a bigger HVAC system, and more roofing material. Go much smaller, and you start cramping bedrooms or losing the open concept feel that makes Barndominiums desirable in the first place. Go much bigger, and your costs climb faster than your livability improves because every extra 100 square feet drags along more ductwork, more wiring runs, and a larger, pricier HVAC unit to condition it. Second, the 40-foot width. Most steel and post-frame truss systems are engineered to span efficiently up to about 40 feet without needing interior load-bearing columns breaking up your open floor plan. Go wider, and you either need a support column right in the middle of your great room, killing the open concept, or a considerably pricier truss engineering solution. Thicker steel, deeper truss webbing, and an engineer's stamp that adds both cost and lead time to the project. Put those two things together, a square footage that maximizes livability per dollar, and a width that stays just under the point where structural cost jumps, and 40 by 60 isn't really a style choice at all. It's closer to a solve equation that builders, working independently across different regions, all arrived at because the underlying physics and cost curves don't change from state to state. It also explains why the 60-foot length is far more flexible than the 40-foot width. Length doesn't run into the truss span problem the way width does, because trusses run across the 40-foot dimension, not down the 60-foot one. That means a builder can stretch the length to 55 feet or 65 feet to add or subtract a bedroom without touching the structural engineering at all. Width is the rigid number in this equation. Length is the adjustable one. Worth knowing if you're sitting down with a builder trying to figure out where you actually have room to customize without adding cost and where you don't. 40 feet. That's the single number carrying this entire trend. It's close to the practical ceiling for clear span trusses on most standard Barndominium builds before costs jump in a meaningful way. Cross that line, and you're not just adding a little cost. You're changing your entire structural engineering approach. One dimension, doing more work in this decision than almost anything else on the plans. Now, let's actually walk through what that looks like inside the home. Picture walking in the front door. You're immediately in a great room that runs the full 40-foot width. Kitchen, dining, and living space flowing together under a vaulted ceiling with exposed trusses. No support column breaking up your sight line anywhere in the room. That unbroken sight line is the entire payoff of staying under the clear span ceiling we just covered. You're literally seeing the structural reasoning play out every time you walk through the door. Down one end, the 60-foot length typically gets split so that 2/3 houses the great room and a primary suite, while the remaining third holds 2 additional bedrooms and a shared bathroom. It's a layout that shows up again and again across different builders in different states, because the reasoning behind the footprint naturally organizes the interior the same efficient way almost every time. Notice what's not happening here, too. There's no hallway eating up 10 feet of square footage just to connect 2 wings of the house. There's no awkward transition where the ceiling drops from vaulted to standard height because a truss run had to change mid-building. The primary suite sits far enough from the secondary bedrooms that noise and privacy sort themselves out naturally, without needing a custom layout to force it. That's the built-in advantage of designing around a proven ratio instead of starting from a blank sheet. The efficient parts of the layout aren't something you have to ask for. They show up on their own. Let's put real numbers on this. A 40 by 60 Barndominium, 2,400 square feet, typically runs $85 to $130 per square foot, depending on region and finish level, landing most builds between $204,000 and $312,000. Now take that same 2,400 square feet and build it as an L-shaped or angled footprint instead. Foundation costs rise because of additional perimeter and corner work. Roof framing gets more complex with valleys and hips instead of a plain gable. Most builders estimate that alone adds $25,000 to $50,000 to an otherwise identical square footage before a single upgraded finish has been chosen. Break that number down and it stops being abstract. $25,000 to $50,000 is roughly the cost of upgrading every countertop in the house to quartz, adding a full outdoor covered porch, or finishing out an entire additional bathroom. That's the trade-off in plain terms. An angled footprint for curb appeal, or that same money spent on the finishes people actually notice and use every day. It's not that irregular shapes are wrong. It's that most people choosing them don't realize they're spending their upgrade budget on corners instead of on countertops. There's one more figure worth putting on the table, because it's the one that surprises people most when a builder first walks them through it. Insurance. A rectangular footprint with a straightforward gable roof is generally easier and cheaper to insure than an irregular footprint with multiple valleys, because insurers price roof complexity into wind and water damage risk. On its own, that difference isn't dramatic. Stacked on top of the higher construction cost, the higher long-term upkeep, and a higher risk of a leak-related claim, it tilts the entire lifetime cost picture even further toward the plain rectangle. None of these figures are enormous individually. Added together, over the life of the home, they're the difference between a house that costs exactly what you expected and one that keeps generating small surprises. This is where most people accidentally undo their own savings. The most common mistake people make with this footprint is trying to improve it by tacking on an attached garage or shop as an afterthought, creating exactly the angle complexity the rectangle was designed to avoid in the first place. If you want a shop or garage, plan it as its own connected rectangle with its own plain roof line, not a jog off the main structure. That single decision preserves almost all of the cost efficiency this shape is known for. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple once you see it. Instead of one building shaped like an L, you build two rectangles side by side, connected by a short breezeway or a shared wall. Same square footage, same functionality, same convenience of stepping straight from the kitchen into the garage, but the foundation and roof framing on each piece stays plain. It's a 5-minute conversation with your builder before the plans are drawn, and it's the difference between keeping that $25,000 to $50,000 in savings or quietly handing it back. Now, the part one told you to stick around for. There's one group of buyers this footprint actually fails, and it's the one I hear about most often 2 years into a build. If you're planning to age in place, or if mobility is a real long-term concern, 40 by 60 at 2 stories, built to maximize the footprint's efficiency, can work against you. The reasoning that makes this footprint so cost-efficient often pushes people toward a 2-story layout to gain square footage without expanding the foundation. That's excellent for young families. It's a real problem 15 years later when stairs become the reason someone has to move. If aging in place matters to you, the smarter move is staying single-story and accepting a slightly wider footprint, say 50 by 60, even though it breaks the clean 40-foot truss span reasoning. You'll pay a little more upfront for a somewhat more complex structural engineering solution. You'll save far more than that in the long run by never having to retrofit or move entirely because of a staircase. I want to be specific about why this is so easy to miss. When you're 35 and building your first Barndominium, a staircase is nothing. It's a design feature, maybe even a nice architectural moment in the great room. Nobody sits down at that stage of life and budgets emotionally for what stairs will mean at 68. But the builders and real estate agents who deal with resales in this category will tell you the same thing. Homes built 2-story to save money on the footprint are disproportionately the ones that get sold or heavily renovated once the original owners hit their 60s and 70s. The reasoning that saved money on day one becomes the exact reason for an expensive renovation or a forced move 20 years later. The trend exists because the numbers genuinely work for most people. It's just not universal math. Know which category you're actually in before you copy the number everyone else is using. So beyond the trend itself, why should this actually be your call and not just something you admire other people building? Because the $25,000 to $50,000 you don't spend fighting corners and valleys doesn't vanish. It becomes the upgraded kitchen you were on the fence about, the covered porch that turns a plain exterior into somewhere you actually want to sit in the evening, or the extra bathroom that saved the family from fighting over a single sink every morning. That's the real case for building this footprint yourself. Not just admiring the pattern from a distance, but redirecting the money that shapes saves you into the parts of the home you'll actually touch every single day. There's a resale angle too, one most first-time builders never think to ask about. A plain rectangular footprint at a common size is easier for appraisers to comp against similar properties and easier for future buyers, or their lenders, to evaluate without hesitation. An unusual shape can be beautiful to live in and still be a slower, harder sell 10 or 15 years from now, simply because there's less to directly compare it to. Building the footprint everyone else is already building isn't just cost efficiency today. It's liquidity later, if your plans ever change. So where does that leave you? 40 by 60 dominates 2026 Barndominium construction because it sits at the intersection of three things. Enough square footage for a real family layout, a width that stays under the clear span truss ceiling, and a shape plain enough to avoid paying a premium for corners and complexity. If you're building for a young or growing family and want the most cost-efficient version of this lifestyle, this is the number to start from. If long-term mobility is part of your plan, treat 40 by 60 as a starting point to adjust from, not a rule to follow blindly. Either way, the real lesson isn't the specific dimension. It's the reasoning underneath it. The builders who've converged on 40 by 60 didn't get there by copying each other's floor plans. They got there by running the same cost and structural numbers independently and landing in the same place. That's the pattern worth remembering long after you've forgotten the exact measurements. Understand why a number works before you build your future around it. One question before you go. Are you planning a 40 by 60, or does your situation put you in that exception category I described earlier? Drop in the comments and tell me why. I read every comment in the first 24 hours, and it shapes which footprints and layouts we break down next. If you want the reasoning behind these building decisions instead of just another pretty tour, subscribe and turn on notifications. We break this stuff down every week. See you in the next one.